Welcome back, everybody. We are here today with Lorraine Ball. So Lorraine has a pretty cool story. After she spent what she says is too many years in corporate America, she said goodbye to the bureaucracy, glass ceilings, and bad coffee, which was always unfortunate, in order to follow her passion and help small business owners succeed. Today, this successful entrepreneur, author, and professional speaker enjoys sharing what she knows about marketing in workshops around the country, in college classrooms, and in her weekly podcast, which is More Than a Few Words. She brings creative ideas, practical tips, and decades of real-world experience to every conversation. In her spare time, she loves to travel and take photos. Lorraine, it is great to have you. Thanks for joining us in the studio today.
Welcome.
It is so nice to be here. Thanks for the invite, guys.
Yeah, we've been looking forward. I think this would be a lot of fun. Before we get into some specific questions on marketing and your background there, let's open up with some icebreakers. So,
I got one.
Okay, Eric, go for it.
Okay, Lorraine, if you could market your way out of captivity, like say you got taken captive and you're like held up in some kind of camp or prison or something, and yet the only way to get out was to market your way out. How would you do it?
You know what? I would do it the way I market everything else, mostly with words. But the real trick would be figuring out why I was being held captive. What is it that those people want? And find a way to convince them that letting me go was the way to achieve their goals.
There you go.
That's great. That's perfect.
That's fantastic. All right, so tell me about either a book, movie, or TV show that's a bit more that you've watched or read recently that really, really has stood out to you.
So one of my favorites, and I just reread it recently, is called Made to Stick. And, you know, I'm a marketing geek and I'm a storyteller, and I love this kind of stuff. And the whole essence of this book is really about using stories. It's the power of creating stories and using stories to convince people. And the examples are fun and clever, and it's two brothers that wrote it. I don't know if they're the ones that do the narration. I listened to it one time, read it another, and that's definitely, if I'm going to geek on marketing, that's my favorite.
Okay.
If I'm going to do
Made to Stick.
Made to Stick. And then if I'm just doing fun stuff, I'm just finished season 3 of The Morning Show. And I am really digging that.
That's a good show. Yeah.
Okay, I haven't seen that.
Oh, and they do a really good job, I think, of dealing with issues that are still in our collective memory. COVID, you know, some of the other newsworthy topics. And I think they have a really cool perspective.
Nice.
I agree.
All right.
I love that show.
Yeah.
It's cool. All right, last question for me. I don't know if Eric's got one after this, but I'm curious, what is one thing you haven't done yet that you really, really want to do, try, whatever category?
Jump out of an airplane.
Yes, let's go. Lorraine, I knew we were going to hit it off. You have sealed it. You're good. I think skydiving is something that every person should do at least one time in their life. And most certainly, if you're an entrepreneur, you really need to jump out of an airplane at least one time. So,
With a parachute.
Look,
Let's hope.
preferably.
Big fan of parachutes.
So, look, Middletown, Ohio is where I've jumped out of a couple of times. So if you want to come to this nice spot in the Midwest, I will meet you there. We'll get a whole crew together. Eric has not been yet. So when you're ready to skydive, just hit us up and we'll take a whole crew up there and we'll do it together. Right, Eric?
Sure.
Let's go ahead and loop him in now over here. That's awesome.
No, I that's not that far away. I'm in Indy, so
Good.
that's really not that far away.
That's nothing at all. You're almost as close as we are. I mean, it's about 2 hours from here. So yeah, that's fantastic. Good. Okay. Well, that is amazing. Okay. So Lorraine, you've done a lot, right? You've had quite a career. Now you're doing what you're doing now and helping people on the marketing front. Can you give us just, I'm curious, first of all, with someone that has as much experience as you do, tell me, in any way that you want to, what has changed, maybe what has been the same from when you very first started off in marketing to right now in 2025? What are similarities? What are differences, changes? And give me a high level of that, because you're obviously a professional here.
So the truth is, I didn't go to grad school to be a marketer. I thought marketing
Okay.
was fluff. I was going to be I was going to do a major in information systems, and then I was going to major in accounting because I'm really good at numbers. I am really
Okay.
good at numbers. And my accounting professor sat me down and she said, "Here's the deal. You can do this, but you're going to hate your life." Could we have had this conversation before I took all the accounting courses?
Great timing.
You know, and I asked her, I'm like, "So what should I do?" And she said, "Well, you should go into marketing." And I was like, "They make that stuff up. There's nothing there." And she said, "Well, no, I don't really think so." And I think she talked to my marketing professor who had almost the same conversation with me. But I couldn't tell her that her life's work was fluff. Not if I wanted to get an A in the course. So I just kind of said, I'm more quantitative. I really need numbers. And she said something to me that has stayed with me my whole career and I think is a foundation in marketing. And what she said is good marketing is all about the numbers. When you do marketing and you don't pay attention to the numbers, you get award-winning advertising that doesn't sell product. And so if you ask me what has stayed the same through all the years of marketing, it is that every marketing decision should be grounded in fact with creative laid on top, not creative and then search for the facts to justify it.
Okay.
That's probably my number one. The other things that have really not changed is marketing is not about you. You asked me how I was going to escape at the top of this conversation. And I told you I was going to find out why I was captive and what they wanted. That's it, people. That fundamentally, who is your customer? First and foremost, and it sure as heck ain't everybody, but who's your customer and what do they want? And then figure out how you're going to deliver it. That's remained the same. What has changed? People's attention spans. You don't have the same amount of time. Way more video, way more. I mean, lots of tools have changed. But underneath all of it, when I'm working on a campaign for a client today, when I'm helping them redo their website, I'm asking them exactly the same questions I asked 25 years ago, 30 years ago. Who is your customer? What do they want?
Yeah.
Who are you really competing with? And it may not be someone who does exactly what you do, but who are you really competing with? And at the end of the day, what are you trying to achieve with this campaign? Yeah, I know you want to sell more. Define more. Are we talking 10% or 100%? Are we talking more customers or more sales from your existing customers? Are we talking more profitable sales? Are we talking more new customers? What is more? And then we can figure out which toy or tool is going to get you there.
So, okay, this is interesting. One show that I really like that I'm sure you're probably familiar with is Mad Men, right?
Oh, I love Mad Men.
So my question for you is, in Mad Men, they are obviously, this is a different era. This was 60s, 70s, that when they were setting this, I think?
Late 50s, early 60s. Madison Avenue.
Okay. So obviously in entertainment, when they're portraying something, they need it to be entertaining, right? So they're not going to get in a lot of nitty gritty that's going to bore people. So it needs to be kind of flashy. So I understand that. How much of that, because when you started off by saying that marketing has to be grounded in fact, right? When you're talking about being quantitative and you're like, well, my problem with marketing is that it's all fluff. So what part of shows like Mad Men that we all enjoy and that we even can understand without marketing backgrounds, because I'm not marketing, Eric's got more background in that than I do, but I'm a total outsider here. Do you think that what they're presenting there is still sort of based in that rudimentary fact and quantitative, or is it a little bit extra? Kind of walk me through some of the things you've seen in terms of the real world and maybe what's portrayed there.
So I think that they try to position John Hamm's character as just this creative genius. And I have run into people, and I'll tell you a story in a minute about a campaign that I was involved in that definitely was initiated by that kind of genius. But what you don't see on the TV show is, in order for him to get to that moment, they make it seem like he sort of rolls out of bed, shows up for the meeting, and is brilliant.
Just there.
In those agencies, there was an entire team creating research and briefings. Sure. And so when he walked into that room, and whether he was selling the tobacco industry or Heinz ketchup, he knew enough about what was going on. He knew what the competitors were saying so that he could spitball. And I'll give you an example that I lived through. I worked for Bryant Heating and Cooling. And we had gotten a new agency, and they had actually started this campaign before I started there, but I sat down and I talked with the guy who developed the campaign. This little agency out of Pennsylvania was competing with all these really big agencies for our account. And the way that you bid back then, it was expensive. You actually had to come up with a concept and pitch your concept. So you had to actually produce a video, which today, no big deal. You whip out your phone, you shoot the video. But this was serious production to get this pitch. And they had been researching us. They knew they were up against some of the biggest agencies on the East Coast. And they had all the facts, and it wasn't coming together. And the guy who was working on the campaign is sitting there well after hours. And one of the things he learned about his office after hours was that they turned the air conditioning off. And so he's sitting there after hours. He didn't know. He never worked that late. He's sitting there. It's July. The sweat is pouring off his face. And he's like, oh, my God, somebody just rescue me.
Yeah.
And the light bulb went off.
Yeah.
The campaign that we ran for probably 5 or 6 years featured the song Rescue Me. And it was great. Pictures of people sweating and the Bryant dealers coming to the rescue. So it was this perfect combination of, he knew what he was trying to do, and divine inspiration. Okay, and great marketers, great advertisers, people that are really kind of madmen genius do have something that the average person doesn't have. Just like a race car driver. I mean, I could drive, but please don't put me on that track. It's the same thing. They're really good at it. But there's also, if you watched any of the Super Bowl commercials, there was not a lot of creative inspiration.
Sure.
This was not the best year in advertising for Super Bowls. And it was because they were coming up with cute, clever, funny ideas that really weren't grounded for the most part. Okay. There were one or two that really were, but for the most part, they weren't very grounded in, I don't know why that ad existed. I don't know
Can I poke on that a little bit? Can you give an example? I don't want to put you on the spot too much here, but can you give me an example of a Super Bowl commercial that you felt like at least hit some of the markers, and one that was example one? Well, who's this for? What's going on here? I'd love to know. So one that I think hit most of the markers was Ultra Hustle. It was with Willem Dafoe and Catherine O'Hara. Yep. And it was these two folks on the middle end of boomer stage competing, playing pickleball, which is totally a boomer game. Yep. For Michelob Ultras. And they were absolutely trouncing all of these young, even professional athletes. I love
that one. That was great, yeah.
But, it was funny for you. Some younger people would be kind of turned off by it, okay? They might laugh, but they wouldn't necessarily, they'd be a little insulted. Michelob didn't
Okay.
care. That's not their
Yeah.
audience. My guess
Yeah.
is they've done their research and figured out the people most likely to drink Michelob Ultra are in the 50 plus category,
That's fascinating.
who are going to look at that and
Yeah.
go, yeah, that's funny. I
That's us
get
right
that.
there.
Really missed their mark. The Pringles one with the flying mustaches.
Yeah.
And I think there were two reasons why I was disappointed in that commercial. It was followed by the Little Caesars ad with the flying
Yes.
eyebrows.
That's one of the eyebrows.
Yeah.
That's the one I was thinking of. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So first off, did they both hire the same advertising agency who said, let's have
give
flying hair?
You the bad one, and you get the good one.
I mean,
Yeah.
and I think that was an interesting counterpoint, because the Pringles ad, there was nothing about a flying mustache that made me want a potato chip.
Sure.
Same.
It didn't connect. I mean,
Yep.
actually, hair in my food really not there.
No thanks.
So, and I couldn't figure out, who were they trying to make laugh?
Right.
It clearly wasn't me. I totally got it. But you're saying you didn't like it either, so I'm thinking kind of missed.
I didn't get anything from the Pringles commercial. The Little Caesars, the entire family laughed. I have my 11-year-old all the way down to the 3-year-old. Right, all 5 of our kids looked at that and they're like, "That's just." They were all just dying. And I've never watched Schitt's Creek. I've seen very few things with Dan and Eugene Levy, but I know who they are, and I know the eyebrows. Like, okay, boom, yep, we all knew who that was, right? Even though we don't watch a lot of their stuff, but everybody loved it. They're like, that's hysterical,
Yeah,
and it's like,
and that was it. Okay, so here's the thing: the difference between the Pringles guy and Eugene Levy.
yeah,
Eugene Levy is known for those eyebrows.
yes,
He's got a
Yes.
career spanning. I mean, even when he was young, he had those eyebrows. Okay,
Yep. It's been
So,
a fixture.
in that instance, you had someone playing off of something that already kind of had some connection.
Branded.
It was
Yeah.
branded.
You weren't
And-
building branding on top of it.
No.
Yeah, right, right.
And he's likable. He
Mm-hmm.
always plays. I can't think of a single role that I was really like, ooh, he was the bad guy. I mean, he's
Sure.
always kind of a likable character. I like him as a comedian. And so, yeah, it was funny because, I mean, the little worms were not worthy to his, bowing down to his eyebrows. Oh my God, I love that.
Yeah.
And Little Caesars, I would argue that the Little Caesars brand is very aligned with Eugene Levy's humor. It's a quirky brand. Their mascot he's a little schleppy guy, and so is Eugene Levy. So there was it was a better fit.
It was a match.
It was definitely more of a match. I'm still not sure. I might actually go out and get a Little Caesars pizza after watching that. The Pringles.
Yeah. Well, it's funny
Yeah.
because it's interesting how you can appreciate something and still enjoy something that you might not even utilize, and what that does. So going back to the Michelob Ultra, I don't like light beers. I never drink light beers. I'm not going to, because I love beer. I don't like light beers. I'm just like, it's a classification of drink. I like that commercial because I started playing pickleball last year, and most of my a large percentage of my peers that I hang out with, they've been playing. They started playing. So there's a lot of us that are playing now. But by and large, if there's somebody that is 50 or above on the court, we all know we're getting creamed because they've been playing way longer than us, and they can spank us, and it's not even funny, right? And so I still resonated with it. It's like, yeah, if William Dafoe showed up, I imagine he probably would kick my butt in pickleball. So I still, even though the product that they're selling wasn't something I'm going to purchase or consume, I still checked off the boxes for it. I'm like, I still laughed. I thought it was funny, and it made sense.
The problem is that funny advertising, heartwarming advertising, if it's not connected to the brand, if you're like, oh, I laughed, I'm never going to drink the product.
Sure.
What good's the ad? I just
Right.
spent
Exactly.
I spent $8 million. I spent $8 million
Yeah.
to get you to laugh. Good.
Yeah.
I'm glad you had good.
Enjoy
Have a
your
nice
Super Bowl.
buy a beer.
Yeah.
That's the issue. Fun,
Sure.
creative. Now I did think we would do two more. Lay's potato chips and the Budweiser ad.
Okay.
Again, I think they worked with the same advertising agency.
Huh.
They both had stories.
Yeah.
They both had the same story. The Budweiser ad was a little pony that got left behind and a beer keg fell off the cart and he pushes the beer into town and saves the day.
Okay.
On the
know if
Lay's
I saw the
potato
one.
chip ad, the little girl wants to go out into the field and plant potatoes. And they tell her she's too little and they leave. And a piece of potato falls off the truck and she plants it and she nourishes it. And at the end of the season, she pulls up that potato and goes running into her dad and gives it to him and he puts it on the truck. It's the same story.
Huh.
Do we only have so much creative?
Yeah.
Now, the Budweiser ad, the only purpose for that ad is to make you feel good about Budweiser. They do it every year. People look forward to it. They look forward to the story. It reconnects them with the Budweiser brand. And I thought that was really good. And I actually thought Lay's message was really good because it wasn't about the potato chip. It was about the farmers. And they made a very definite statement about who grew the potatoes.
That kind of goes into your point of figuring out what the purpose of the campaign is for. Do you want because you're not always selling something,
No.
Sometimes you're reasserting the brand's image, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And that could be to your existing audience, it could be to your potential audiences. But it's not always just selling the product. It's also saying, hey, this is actually what we're here for. This is what we're about. So when you think of us, also think of these things, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So go ahead. No,
I was going to say, because people have choices. And I can buy things from any number of companies. And we've seen a lot. I think this is something that has changed tremendously is a lot more consumer advocacy and voting with our wallets.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm sorry, I don't like your policy on the healthcare you provide your employees. Sorry, I'm not going to fund your business.
Yeah, right. Do you think that is? I mean, I'm guessing it's more of a reality now than, let's say, the Mad Men era. Mm-hmm. Do you think that it is markedly so, that's a seismic shift in terms of marketing overall, that we also need to portray something about the company's values more so than before it was just the product or service?
I think societal marketing has definitely increased. And I think it's a perfect storm. If we'd had the internet in the 70s, I think you would have seen a lot of societal marketing. Okay. There was just no way that the average person could get a message out about an issue. You know, you could organize a rally, you could put signs up on campus, but you couldn't reach thousands of people with 160 characters.
Okay.
You know, so the ability to organize around issues, to share information, to make people aware. You know, you also have Freedom of Information Act. So we know a lot more about our government and we know a lot more about companies. We just have more information and we have more ways to deliver it. So I think it is a lot bigger. I think as we saw this rise in kind of societal marketing, I've seen a lot of companies do things that I think are just stupid, trying to play where they don't belong. And then I've seen companies that go, no, this is consistent with our brand and who we are. Starbucks had a campaign. I teach marketing, so right now I'm flipping through the slides on societal marketing. I'm thinking, okay, what are the examples I can share? Yeah. One of the examples I share with my class is this photograph of a campaign that Starbucks was running about their diversity. You know, that was a big part of who they were.
Sure.
As one of their store managers was calling the police because there were two men of color that had been sitting in the restaurant too long, and she was afraid they were going to rob her.
Yikes.
You know, I mean,
Yes.
so
Wow.
it just, no, you can't say this and do this.
Yeah, for sure.
Legos had, okay, my other one that just makes me laugh, Legos had one, they were trying to convince people about all of their sustainability programs. And I'm like, guys,
Okay.
your product is plastic.
Yeah, that's a bit hard sell. This is not renewable.
No, I don't care what you're doing and everything else. Find another issue to hang your hat on.
So with that, let's go with the Lego thing, for instance. Okay, so if you're talking to Lego, if they reached out to you and they're like, Lorraine, we need you to consult for us. We want to do sustainability, right? And feature this. What are you going to respond? You're gonna be like, look, obviously this is counterintuitive to what your product is. So I'm curious, are you staying away from the issue because it's strictly counterintuitive and you feel that you need like a tertiary thing or a totally different aspect to play in to build the brand? Or do you just need to build the brand in some other way that isn't maybe socially minded altogether? Well, how are you approaching that? Like, what are you going to do?
I think there are a lot of social issues that Legos could get involved in that would be consistent with their brand. I think funding educational programs. I think they could do recycling programs. I think they could have your kids outgrown their Legos. Bring them into our recycling centers. We're going to clean them up, and we're going to distribute them to lower income communities, to schools in lower income. I think they could have done it without trying to pretend. You're making a product of plastic. If you want to be sustainable, design Legos in a way that doesn't use plastic.
Sure.
Now, my children had Legos.
Yep.
I had an entire floor you could not walk on because the Legos were everywhere.
Yep.
I'm not telling you that parents aren't going to buy the product. It is an amazing product. However, find an issue that fits instead of trying to be something you're not. That would be my recommendation.
No, that makes a lot of sense. You're not trying to fight yourself to sell something that isn't there. You're just like, hey, this let's do this. This can be complementary. I think your idea of, recycling centers, that makes a ton of sense, right? Because all of the Legos that I played with growing up were actually my brother's friend. My brother's 10 years older than me. And his friend had like thousands of Legos. It's like, oh, hey, your brother probably wants to play with these here. You want to give them to him? And I inherited a massive, right? And then I started buying new sets when I got older. But that's how I got Legos. My kids now have Legos that I had. It's just like, it's just gone down the line. And so, you can, like, everybody has Legos that has Legos, have them from a previous generation already. So like that, like everybody gets that. We're all on board there. That would be seems like a reasonable thing. So I want to ask you then, you work with small businesses, right? You went from the corporate system into servicing small business. How does this look? I mean, I'm assuming it doesn't look much different, but how are you speaking to a small business that maybe doesn't have the budget of Budweiser or Lego or somebody that's like, here's the check. How many millions do you need, right? You're dealing with a smaller amount, the same ideas. How are you incorporating that? What are you telling them, and what strategies are you implementing for those smaller businesses?
So those same questions all apply, okay? Who is your customer? And it's even harder, I think, for small businesses, particularly in the early stages, to pick a target because they're like, well, but I want to sell here and here. And I'm like, okay, I get that. But for this campaign, for right now, where's your sweet spot? Where are you going to have the most success? The example I always give them is, I haven't had a Coke probably since 1987. Okay. Why? Because in a world with chocolate, I'm not spending 150 calories on soda. But I'll have a Diet Coke, right? And now I drink water, and that whole carbonated beverage thing doesn't usually work really well. But if I walk into, and Coke knows this, they run ads for me about Diet Coke on networks and channels that are totally different than where they're promoting Coke.
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
But if I walk into a convenience store and I say, I'd like a Coke, please, the clerk is not going to say, I'm sorry, ma'am, you're not in Coke's demographic. He's
Right.
going to say, $1.25, have a nice day.
Yep.
So when I work with small businesses, I always start there. And I always say, look, let's talk about who's the center of your circle. We're going to talk to them. Other people are going to see that message. And if somebody comes waving a check, I'm not telling you can't work with them. But I am telling you where we're going to focus our attention. So you start with that target customer. You start with figuring out who your competitors really are. And earlier I said it's not always the company that looks like you. I'm a marketing consultant. I work with small business owners, right? Small business owners come to me because they want to grow. So I compete with other marketing consultants. Sure. But I also compete with coaches. Because you could just as easily hire a business coach who doesn't know anything about marketing if you wanted to grow.
Yeah.
Two totally different solutions to the same problem. So when I'm selling against another marketing company, I focus on my marketing expertise. When I'm selling against a coach, I have to focus on the differences between coaching and marketing and why marketing is better. If I don't do that, I don't get that sale.
Interesting.
So you got to know, who am I losing sales to? Who am I really competing with?
Yeah.
And then figure out what you want. With small businesses, when I first started, I left corporate. I was the postcard queen. I was great with a funny headline, great graphic, and let's mail that out to 100 people, 200 people, 1,000 people, and let's make some waves.
Yep.
And the postcards were great, and they worked really well. But then along comes email marketing, and I went, ooh, I don't have to print those. There's no postage involved. All I got to do is build an email list.
Yeah.
And it was a game changer because it allowed me with my clients to reach and stay in touch with. I still had to do in-person list building work. With small businesses, it's about being creative. It's about being light on your feet. We launched a butcher shop. He's in year 15 now. And they built all of these. He picked the location because they were building all of these apartments behind him. We printed door hangers because what was happening is the people living in the apartments were going right by Joe's and off to the grocery store because that was their habit. And so we put door hangers and offered them, I forget what the offer was, but just bring this in with you.
Yeah.
Then we went to the 5 restaurants up and down the street because he was on a kind of a main street area, and we gave them something they could put in with their checks. Hey, did you like them? Because a lot of them were getting their meat from Joe. Did you like the meat tonight? It comes from Joe. Making dinner tomorrow? Bring this in.
Wow. And the restaurants
Wow.
would put that with the checks.
Because the restaurants knew they weren't coming back tomorrow night.
Sure. Okay.
And,
Yeah.
I mean, and it wasn't, it wasn't him saying, cook at home, don't go to the restaurant. It was, you just had a fabulous meal.
Yeah.
Have another one at home tomorrow.
Huh.
And so it was clever little. The other thing we did, and we did this with my heating and air conditioning contractors, I did this all the time. Referral business, word of mouth, doesn't happen by accident. So we printed up little business cards that after you came into Joe's, on the business card, you put your name on the back and you gave that card to a friend of yours, okay? So you came into the butcher shop, I give you the card, you leave with your order, you give that card to Eric. When Eric comes in, he knows, because he's got that card that says so on the front, he's going to get 10% off his whole order because he's been referred by a friend. But he's got to bring the card. When he brings the card, it gets dropped. I take the card. I know, Aram, you sent Eric, so I call you up. Aram, thanks for sending Eric. By the way, I got a pound of chopped meat sitting here for you, my gift to you. Now, back then, a pound of chopped meat might have been $2.99. It was not a big investment. So to get a new customer,
Yeah.
It was worth it. And then
Yep.
you came in, you picked up your chopped meat. Nobody goes into a butcher shop and leaves with 1 pound
With
of chopped
one
meat.
free thing of chopping.
You're
Ever.
buying steaks, you're buying fish, you're buying chicken. And so
Yeah.
with those cards, he built that referral repeat business. So, and we built a mailing list.
That's so cool. It's good customer acquisition cost right there. That's
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
So,
fantastic.
with small businesses, you got to get creative. You got to do things different. The thing I love about working with small businesses is great business owners will be like, yeah, let's give it a shot. Cool.
Okay.
Okay,
So
let's
do
do
you
this.
yeah, so is that I'm curious, what's the trade-off there of like if you're working with a bigger established company or a corporation versus a small business? Obviously, small businesses can move more quickly because they're small and they don't have a bureaucracy. They're also like limited in financial resources, right?
Mhm.
Do you feel like the pros and cons to both are just they kind of balance out? Is there a what's ideal there? Is it best to like have a bigger budget, but it's just a longer timeline to get something passed through, or is it nice to move fast and kind of experiment with
I
smaller
think that depends
resources?
on you and how you like to work.
Okay.
When I left corporate, I ran my digital agency for 19 years before I sold it. Now I just
Yeah.
do freelance consulting. But when I was running the agency, I made several decisions that worked for me. Number one, no client would be worth more than 30% of my overall budget business. No
Sure.
client would represent more than 30%.
Yep.
And number two, I didn't like working with big clients. I get the budget, the bureaucracy, the things I really didn't like about it didn't suit me. Because typically, when I'm working with a large organization, I'm working with a marketing manager who's on a salary. It's not their money. So they don't
Okay.
mind jerking you around and changing their minds. And, oh, yeah, we'll spend money on this. Yeah, that didn't work. I mean, there's not that real incentive like, oh my God, my business hangs on this decision.
Sure.
And so I made a decision. I mean, if you called me and you were from a big company, we'd have a conversation. I would significantly increase my rates just because I would need more antacid tablets. But we refer to that as the pain in the ass multiplier. When you're talking to a customer and you know that they are
Yeah.
going to be that, you have a
Yep.
multiplier in your head. And if they
I
still
have
take,
I have quoted myself out of jobs for that exact reason. It's like if I get this, it'll be so much money that I'll tolerate it for 6 to 12 months, but I'm expecting to say no because they're gonna be like, "What the heck? How is he charging this?" It's like it's only for you.
well, you know what?
Yeah.
The way I looked at it is if I charged enough, I could hire somebody else to be the middle person, and I didn't have to
Right.
deal with it.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I got jazzed with the success. The fact that Joe's has been in business for 15 years and he's expanded twice. I love that. I love that when I drive up one of the major streets in the city, there's an 8-story building and the sign at the top is Imagine, which is a company that I started working with when it was 3 guys in their basement. Okay.
Wow.
Those are
It's
the
cool.
things that are fun for me. And um, it was a choice. It was
Yeah.
definitely a choice. It worked for me. And small doesn't mean broke. You know, there are companies that did not want to spend money on marketing but wanted me to help them. Those were not good candidates for me. But if I could work with the owner of a flooring company or the owner of a heating and air conditioning company, these are big businesses. They're spending money on TV ads. They can
Yeah.
spend money with me.
Yeah. That's great.
Mhm.
So I'm curious. So we talked about marketing kind of in the past, in the present, a lot of the similarities there. What are maybe, if you have some in particular concerns, I'm curious about marketing in the future, right? So obviously, a lot of those things are going to stay the same. The fundamental question is probably never going to change, but maybe that's with technology. Maybe that's with the onload of AI and the fact that now we're generating photos and videos that aren't even of real things or just like generated. What is that? What is something that like, oh man, in 20 years, what if this happens? That kind of freaks you out.
Um, I think I think we're becoming more and more fragmented. And on the one hand, I'm like, okay, well, if you're segmenting your market, that's good. That's easy.
Yeah.
I can do more. I can do more dedicated marketing to just this group of people. But if you have an idea, if you have a product or a service that crosses segments for whatever reason, I think it's going to be exceedingly hard. I think we're going to go through this phase where there's going to be a lot of bad AI generated content. And then I think we're going to come out the other end as a few good marketers really get good at understanding that AI is an employee, not your boss. What AI is good for and what AI is not good for. If you give AI your original content and you ask it to synthesize, summarize, clean up, brilliant. I do that with every one of my transcripts for my podcast. It's an original conversation. AI, summarize it. Now, I have to tell you, I gave it half a dozen of my writing samples first and said, this is how I write. Now, write this like me. It saves me a lot of time. Suggest titles. And sometimes it'll nail it, and sometimes I'll go through 5 iterations and I'm like, it's okay, AI. I'm going to come up with something on my own because you don't have it. And it is, the good marketers will have the judgment to go, that's good, that's not good. I'll give you one other example. I was working on, have you had ChatGPT generate any photos for you yet?
Oh, yeah. I've had it attempt to.
Have you noticed that all the people are just a little too pretty?
You mean like real photos? I thought you meant just like goofy images and stuff. I don't think I've done any like realistic looking photos. The just the digital stuff was so bad. I didn't get any further than that.
So it's kind of that animated graphic novel style is what you get.
Okay. Yeah.
And I was trying to do for a client, I had been working on their customer personas. And their target customer is 40 to 55, 40 to 60. And they gave me a lovely picture, but she was too young. And I said, could you make her a little older?
Yeah.
They kept the face the same and they just grayed her hair. But what I did is I looked at that picture and I liked the composition of the picture. So then I went to a stock photo library and I grabbed 2 stock photos that allowed me to create the same image, but with a person more representative of what I was looking for. So I think a lot of people will stop with that first ChatGPT iteration. And so you're going to get a lot of bad marketing. A lot of young people with gray hair.
Yeah. It's great.
But the good marketers are going to be like, okay, that's the starting point.
Yeah. That makes sense.
I'm not looking forward to that interim period where there's just so much of the bad.
Things are just rough. Yeah. All right. Well, this has been a lot of fun. I have really enjoyed your insights here, Lorraine, and you've just got such a wealth of experience. I think it was especially fun talking about the Super Bowl ads. I just think that's cool that the timing worked out where we could have you on the show right after that and get your take on that. Wrapping up here, I want to just ask a couple of last fun questions here. We talked about in your bio that you like to travel, you like to take photos. So I'm curious, what's the favorite place you've ever traveled? And what's maybe the best photo, like the photo that you've taken that you are really, really proud of?
Oh, I was looking to see if I had it in my office right now. Best place that I've ever gone is wherever I am. I have to tell you that. Every trip we take, I'm like, oh my God, this is the best.
This is it.
This is awesome. It. The best photo I think I've ever taken, I have 2. Can I have 2?
Yep, that's fine.
One, I took very early on. We were in Kyoto and we had just gotten in Japan and we had just gotten off the train. And there was a professional photographer and he was shooting a woman in full geisha makeup.
Okay.
And so he was lighting her and everything by the water. And I came in behind him and really took advantage of his setup. And I have this amazing, amazing photo of this authentic Japanese geisha.
Wow.
And Then the other one, and I actually sold this one. I was very excited. I just had it
Okay.
in an art exhibit. We were in Venice, and we had taken the boat to Murano to see the glass, and then Burano. We got there too late in the day. All the lace factories were closed. And so,
Yep.
okay, the lace factory's closed. Look, there's a bar. We can sit here. We can have a glass of wine and a little nibble and watch the sun go down. And so we're on one of the canals. And the thing about Burano is each building is painted a different color. It's yellow and green and blue. And it was right as the sun was going down, reflecting the colors and really exploding all of the photos,
Wow.
all of the colors of each of those buildings. And it's just like this explosion of color. And I think that's probably one of my favorite photos.
Are these, I know you have do you have an Instagram account? Are these posted anywhere we can share?
They're probably buried in my Instagram account.
Okay. I'll see if I can find them and post them here in the show notes, because I want to see them now. Just you sold them so well, so I'm sure everyone's gonna be listening. Like, heck, where are these pictures at?
You know what?
So,
I will find them because they're probably on my website.
Okay,
and I'll send you links.
we'll post them here. That would be fantastic. What's the best way to stay in touch with you, Lorraine? What platform are you on that you connect the best with people so we can stay in touch?
So I would say LinkedIn. That's really where I play. It makes the most sense for me. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I'm on all of them, but I have the best conversations. So look for me on LinkedIn.
Yep,
I'm
great.
pretty active, so I'll overwhelm your feed.
Well, I'm connected with you on LinkedIn, and I double checked just now just to make sure I thought we were. And part of the reason why it's important is because when you're ready to go skydiving, I'll be ready for your message saying, "Hey, Aram, Middletown, Ohio, let's do this." And I'll grab Eric, we'll create a crew, and we'll jump out of a plane. So keep us in the loop for that. And yeah, this has been a lot of fun. Thanks so much for coming on the show. I really, really enjoyed having you on. I think we had a great discussion, and hopefully we'll catch up with you down the road and hear how things are developing even further.
Awesome. Guys, this was so much fun. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bet. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and we'll chat soon.
See ya.
Cheers.